When I first heard his voice take credit for my work, something inside me snapped. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, hollow ache, like a window shattering slowly in a silent house. I remember standing there, my hands trembling, the scent of varnish from the theater stage lingering in the air, and thinking, this isn't real. This can't be happening. I had grown up under his guidance, watching every subtle gesture, memorizing every lesson he handed down like fragile gold. Mr. Stanton, they called him, my mentor, my guide, my supposed champion. When I was 12, I walked into his studio for the first time, clutching a worn sketchbook and a trembling hope. And he had looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You have a fire, child. Don't let anyone smother it." Those words became my compass. They felt like sunlight in a room that had been dark for so long. For years, I poured everything into my craft, painting, acting, performing, creating. Mr. Stanton was always there, correcting my angles, teaching me how to speak with authority, guiding me through auditions, even sitting in the wings during performances to nod approvingly when I hit the mark. In public, he was the wise, patient mentor. Behind closed doors, he was a quiet cheerleader, celebrating every small victory with a wry smile and a word of advice whispered just for me. Life at home was quiet in comparison. My parents, though loving, had never understood the world I wanted to live in. My mother would fuss over my clothes. My father would worry about practicality. But Mr. Stanton? He believed. And that belief shaped me, shaped the woman I became. Long before I even realized I was becoming someone extraordinary. It wasn't just the art. It was the companionship, the understanding, the feeling of being seen. I remember evenings in the studio. The smell of linseed oil and turpentine hanging in the air. The soft clack of brushes against the palette. I'd be working on a sketch, and he'd just watch humming. A little tune, offering a word here, a tweak there. I thought those nights were ours, sacred in a way I couldn't explain. By the time I was 17, I landed my first big role in a local theater production. It wasn't Broadway, not yet, but it was a start. I remember stepping onto that stage for the first time, my costume slightly itchy against my skin, the faint scent of stage powder in the air, the audience's applause washing over me like a tidal wave. And he was there, smiling from the wings, whispering encouragement as I took my bow. I felt invincible. I felt seen. I felt like everything we had worked for had led to this exact moment. Everything changed the night of my breakthrough. A regional theater festival, the biggest stage I had ever imagined. Lights glaring down, the air thick with anticipation. I had rehearsed for months, every movement choreographed, every line etched into memory. And when the performance ended, it was thunderous applause, curtain calls, and a flood of congratulations. I should have been ecstatic, my heart soaring. But as I listened to people praising him, a cold, hollow dread settled in my chest. "Your guidance was invaluable," the producer said, clapping Mr. Stanton on the back. "We couldn't have done this without you." I froze. My stomach twisted. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to scream, but all I could do was stand there, my costume heavy and sticky with sweat, my hands gripping the edge of the stage as if it were a lifeline. But it was my performance, I thought. I was the one up there, living it, breathing it, making it real. How could he? Mr. Stanton looked at me then, that faint, practiced smile on his lips, and gave a subtle nod as if to say, "Don't worry, child, it's just how the world works." But there was no comfort in that nod, no warmth. Only the bitter taste of betrayal sliding down my throat. Before that night, my life had been simple in its own chaos. I woke up early, drank coffee too bitter for my taste, sketched in the morning light, rehearsed in the afternoon, and returned home to my little apartment, its walls lined with books, sketches, and half-finished canvases. My friends knew me as dedicated, quiet, a little obsessive perhaps, but passionate. I had routines, Sunday morning pancakes with a friend, late-night phone calls to my mother, evenings spent in the small park across the street where I'd watch the leaves swirl in the wind. That life felt safe, predictable, almost sacred. Even Mr. Stanton's eccentricities had become endearing. The way he tapped his fingers on the piano keys while he talked, humming under his breath. The cluttered studio that smelled faintly of old wood and paint thinner. His endless stories about actors he'd trained decades ago. Some of them legends now. I had grown accustomed to these rhythms, these small, human textures. They felt like home. So when the first hint of something amiss began, I barely noticed it. A glance I didn't understand, a comment that felt off, a way he lingered just a little too long in the spotlight during interviews. At first, I shrugged it off. I'm imagining things, I told myself. He couldn't. But small things piled up, subtle cracks forming in the foundation of trust one had built my life around. I remember the first time the suspicion fully hit me. It was during a press interview for the festival. The journalist, clearly impressed, leaned in and asked, "Who would you say deserves the most credit for this production's success?" Before I could respond, Mr. Stanton spoke. "Well, it's really been a team effort, but I've been fortunate to guide some incredible talent along the way. The real work was theirs, of course, but I like to think I provided the vision." The words stung, but it wasn't just what he said. It was the ease, the way he subtly positioned himself at the forefront. While I shrank back, silent, invisible. My mentor, the man who promised to see me, to champion me, had just rewritten history, and I had no idea how to reclaim it. That night, back in my apartment, the scent of burnt coffee still clinging to my sweater, I stared at the ceiling, thinking about all those nights we had shared. All those lessons, all those moments I had poured my heart into, now being claimed by someone else. I could feel the hollow ache in my chest deepen, a grief unlike any I had known. This was betrayal, pure and simple, and I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to confront it. But I would have to. I never thought reclaiming my story would feel like this. It wasn't a dramatic courtroom scene, or a shouting match on social media. It was quieter, steadier, like the soft click of a lock turning after years of keeping a door shut. I sat at my desk, the smell of fresh paint and ink filling my small studio, and I finally wrote my version of the story. Every line, every memory, every triumph I had lived, my voice unfiltered, unapologetic, fully mine. Publishing it wasn't about revenge. I didn't want to humiliate him, or drag his name through the mud. I wanted the world to know the truth. That my success was earned, that the hours, the tears, the painstaking rehearsal, the nights of self-doubt and exhilaration, they were mine. And in telling it, I healed. The response surprised me. Messages flooded in from young artists who had felt unseen, silenced, or stolen from. They told me my story gave them courage. Parents wrote about their children who had been overlooked, mentors who had been unfair, and how my words inspired them to reclaim their own voices. That warmth, that connection, was the balm I hadn't realized I needed. Mr. Stanton eventually reached out. He called, leaving a voicemail that was polite but distant, almost rehearsed. I listened to it twice, then deleted it. I didn't need his validation anymore. Watching him squirm in the wake of truth might have felt satisfying in the moment, but it wouldn't have healed me. The closure came from inside. I didn't owe him my forgiveness, but I owed myself peace. I took a long walk through the park near my apartment that evening. The same park I had wandered as a teenager, staring at the leaves dancing in the wind, dreaming of stages I could barely imagine. Now the air was crisper, the sunlight warmer, and I felt lighter. I stopped by the little fountain and let the water ripple over my fingertips, thinking about how much I had grown. Betrayal had tried to define me, but it hadn't won. I had. I also realized something else. Trust is sacred, but self-trust is even more so. For too long, I had let someone else's approval dictate my worth. But that night, as the city hummed softly around me, I promised myself that no one could ever take that again. My story, my life, my voice, they belonged to me, always. I even reached out to some of my younger protégés, the ones I now mentor. I share with them everything I've learned, everything I've felt, not to scare them, but to empower them. I tell them that talent is precious, yes, but integrity and self-respect are priceless. I see their eyes widen, the same way mine did when I first met Mr. Stanton. Full of hope, full of fire. And I smile, knowing that this time, the fire is theirs to guard. There are days when I still remember the sting of that betrayal, but it's no longer sharp. It's softened, reshaped into resilience. Life moves forward and so do I. I've walked away from the shadows of what someone else claimed, and I've stepped fully into my own light. Would I have done things differently if I could? Perhaps I would have spoken up sooner, trusted my instincts more sharply. But life rarely gives us do-overs. It gives us lessons, and it gives us the courage to heal. And healing, real deep healing, is its own kind of triumph. So here I am. My story is mine. My success is mine. And the world knows it. The ache of betrayal has turned into a quiet, steady strength, one that no one can take away. Would you have had the courage to reclaim your story? To stand for yourself even when someone you trusted tried to steal your light? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, because we all deserve to be seen, fully and unapologetically.